perspective, there are fairly straightforward answers to these questions, right? So the first comment is that fasting is actually very helpful to your health, okay? There are not significant risks to your health from fasting. A better way to explain it to somebody who's not familiar with fasting is to explain it using the concept of intermittent fasting, which is something that has become a bit more popular nowadays and people are a bit more able to understand. It's also important to explain that the fast is broken every day, okay? It's only for a certain period of time that we abstain from eating and drinking. When we explain it that way, often that can clear up misconceptions where people think we're actually fasting for the whole 30 days continuously, okay? So it's important to clear up any doubts or worries that you might be getting from your children's teachers or indeed from your work fellows or your bosses, okay? As far as your performance, your work performance at school or at work, is that affected by your fasting? The answer is no. Fasting actually improves your focus and concentration, and you don't have the ups and downs in blood sugar that you might find after lunch or after afternoon tea, which is when most people experience a surge in their blood sugar and a decrease in their focus and concentration abilities. Rather, the person who's fasting actually has a fairly constant sugar and will not be affected. However, it is undeniable that fasting causes fatigue, okay? I think all of us online today know that you're certainly more fatigued, not only from the fasting, but from the routines that change with fasting, waking up early, doing our salat and so forth, okay? Doing extra prayers at Tarawih prayer after we break fast. There is no denying that fasting is challenging to the body and can fatigue the body. So let's look at some of those concerns now. The three main risk groups for fasting are people with specific health conditions. The specific health conditions that we think about are conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, pregnancy and breastfeeding. These are the main populations that we're concerned about. In addition, I'm often asked about elderly people and fasting. I'm quite aware that today's talk is directed towards people who are either in that age group themselves or who are carers for that age group. It's very important that we not discourage the elderly from fasting. Fasting is generally safe for elderly people because we break our fast every day. Sustained periods of fasting without breaks are not recommended for elderly people. However, as Muslims, we break our fast every day. So it is possible to safely fast as an elderly person. That said, there are several concerns with fasting in the elderly that I'd like you to consider, especially for those that you are a carer for, or if you yourself are an elderly person who's choosing to fast. The first thing is the risk of dehydration. Dehydration is a serious illness and can be triggered in periods where people are not having sufficient fluid. It can happen to the elderly and it can happen to the very young. So if you have young children in your house who are fasting or who are doing a lot of activities and sports during the day, it's also a really important consideration. Particularly with the elderly, we would like you to consider more fluids at sehri time and at iftar time, up to 2 glasses per meal. So 2 glasses of water at sehri time, 2 glasses of water at iftar time, 2 glasses of water before your namaz, if you're doing your Tarawih namaz, okay? In that sense, you will easily reach the 6 to 8 glasses that are recommended in general. Okay? In general, we're all recommended to have 6 to 8 glasses of water per day. Right? And it is possible to do that while you're fasting. So please remember to encourage your children to have water at sehri and iftar, and please encourage the elderly in your family to keep drinking water when they're not fasting. The other sources of water in our diet are fresh fruits and vegetables. The Prophet ﷺ really loved fresh fruits and vegetables. There's a whole list of his favourite fruits and vegetables. And indeed, it's sunnah to choose from those when we're eating. However, a good variety of fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh juices, fresh soups are recommended during Ramadan for everyone, but particularly for the elderly. These fresh fruits and juices have their own fluid in them that is rich in vitamins and also helps with controlling the possible side effects of dehydration, which can include a decrease in some nutrients such as salt and chloride and potassium. So keeping those things in mind, we're going to have more water, we're going to have more fresh fruits and vegetables, we're going to have fresh soups, and we're going to encourage everyone in the house to avoid becoming dehydrated. Thankfully, in Australia, Ramadan this year is in fairly moderate temperature. There's a moderate climate. We're not having a lot of hot weather. But dehydration is particularly a concern if you have relatives overseas who might be in India and Pakistan, where the weather is quite warm still. And please do encourage those relatives as well to take an eye on their dehydration and to prevent dehydration in young children as well. Let's talk now about people who are not able to fast. People who are not able to fast, the rulings are well known on this. I myself am not a religious expert. I'll leave that to Maulana Saab to give you direct advice about jurisprudence matters. There are many categories of people who can't fast, okay? That can range from menstruating women to very young children to people who are ill, people who are hospitalised, people who are travelling, okay, and the elderly for whom it may be risky to life. I'm going to briefly talk about the elderly because this is a talk for the elderly. So if you have multiple chronic medical illnesses that you take multiple medications for, it may be difficult for you to fast. Now, I get asked every year from different patients, should my mum be fasting? Should my wife be fasting? Should I be fasting? It's very important that you consult your own doctor about your own situation before you make decisions. What might be right for your cousin's brother's uncle on WhatsApp in Canada is not necessarily going to be right for you. Similarly, it's important if your health professional is not from a Muslim faith and not from a Muslim background, that you explain to them how emotionally significant fasting is for you. They may not understand that it is actually very difficult for people to leave the fast, and there are emotional challenges that are associated with it. It's very easy sometimes for health professionals who may not be familiar with the faith to say, oh, no, don't fast, okay? And it's important to explain to them that fasting is really important to you and that it's part of your faith and your identity, and you can't leave it just so easily, okay? When we're talking about significant conditions such as diabetes, diabetes is probably the first one that comes to mind with significant conditions. Diabetes is a common condition that affects many people in our community. It's important to understand that diabetes can have many levels, okay? So some people can have diabetes that's managed with just diet and exercise. Some people are managed with tablets only, and some people are managed with injections, and some people are managed with a combination of both injections and tablets. Please do not put yourself in the position of giving advice to your friends and family members who have diabetes based on your own experience. What might work for you will not necessarily work for others. Some people with diabetes are completely unable to fast, and that is perfectly okay with Allah, so that should be perfectly okay with you. Please do not push people to fast if they have been told not to fast by their medical team. That is a decision for the individual and between them and Allah. The last topic that we're going to talk about is fasting in pregnancy and breastfeeding. As we mentioned before, there are a lot of women on the line today, and a lot of them will be concerned with matters regarding menstruation, pregnancy, and breastfeeding. There are specific rulings around each of these conditions, which I won't go into in detail today. From a health perspective, it is not recommended to fast towards the end of the pregnancy due to the fact that there are so many risk factors around high blood pressure and diabetes. However, again, we take it on a case-by-case basis. In general, similarly with breastfeeding, if the breastfeeding mother does not have enough intake during the day, she may find that her milk supply will reduce and the quality of her milk may not settle the baby. However, again, it is a deeply personal decision and something that should be made in conjunction with your own treating doctor and in consideration of your own personal health requirements. Overall, the benefits of fasting far outweigh any potential risks. The health benefits of fasting have been widely recognised. Mostly they regard the change or reset in our metabolism. So a lot of you would have heard about the 2 in 5 diet or the intermittent fasting diet that has become popular in the West. So Muslims have been doing intermittent fasting forever. Okay, so a lot of you would already be fasting Mondays and Thursdays, which is Sunnah, and a lot of you are fasting Ramadan, which is Farz. So what are the benefits of fasting to our health? They essentially work as a detox to your body. By controlling our intake for a certain amount of hours per day, we reset our metabolism away from inflammation and we reset our metabolism away from the cascade of continuous ingestion of food and drink, okay? Your body can be concentrated on repairing itself and cleaning itself because it's having a break from eating and drinking. It doesn't have to think about eating and drinking, it can focus on other tasks. Certainly, fasting has shown benefits towards weight loss in some individuals and not in others. And it can also improve our general well-being and digestion. The other benefit, which is not often spoken about, is the psychological benefit of Ramadan fasting. So in Ramadan, we are strengthening our tawakkul. Tawakkul is our reliance upon Allah and our belief in Allah knowing best for us. And we are improving our general sense of self-control and discipline. We're also improving our taqwa, which is our God consciousness. Why are these things so important to our mental health? Mental health is probably the most common thing that we're seeing at the practice. Because of the stresses of the last 2 years, almost 3 now, over the pandemic, many people are experiencing different levels of psychological distress. Fasting can actually help your psychological distress. It is a potential to refine your concentration abilities, your self-discipline, and to start thinking about others and helping others in your community. In addition, we have a lot of community events that happen during Ramadan where we are meeting each other more frequently. We might be speaking to each other on the phone more frequently. We might be seeing each other at the masjid for Tarawih. And these community engagements and family engagements also help to sort of improve our psychological health. The risk to psychological health can be that we are not mindful of our anger and irritability that can happen during fasting and subsequent harshness when dealing with family members. It's very important to remember the hadith where Prophet ﷺ said, if you feel angry, remind the person that you are fasting. Say first, I'm fasting. I'm fasting. Remind yourself you're fasting. If you're at work and you're feeling irritable, angry or anxious, remind the other person that you're fasting and excuse yourself from the situation. Now, I'm mindful of the time. Am I on time, or do I have time to briefly speak about COVID?
I think we are running a little late, and Dr. Ghamidi is with us, so I think we will do it next time.
Okay, I'm going to just steal 2 seconds.
Yes.
Because we do have people on the line. Please remember to get your flu vax this winter. It's very important for people over 65 in particular. Please remember to have your booster if you've not already been boosted. If you're over 65, you are eligible for a 4th dose. This is called the winter boost. Please ensure that you get your 4th dose. For everyone under 65, you need 3 doses to be fully vaccinated, 1, 2, and 3rd booster. And a friendly reminder to those people who haven't vaccinated their 5 to 12-year-olds or their 12 to 15-year-olds, that's where the numbers are lagging. So 5 to 12-year-olds, we're still at about 56% vaccinated. 12 to 15-year-olds, we're at about 80%. Over 18, we're at about 95 to 97%. And boosted, we're at 60%. So where's the lag? The lag's in boosting, young children, and the 4th dose for people over 65. I'll stop speaking now. Thank you all for your time and thank you for listening. Please forgive me if there's any mistakes in anything that I've said.
Zahid, can I ask a question, please?
Thank you, Dr. Sophia Khan. आप बाद में रामदी साहब के प्रोग्राम के बाद इंशाल्लाह.
ठीक है.
जी. So thank you, Dr. Sophia Khan, for a very informative talk as always. So we do not have the time for Q&A today, perhaps later in the program. लेकिन हम लोग अगले सेगमेंट की तरफ चलते हैं और एक अहम ऐलान उससे कबल के ये है कि समा का ईद मिलन प्रोग्राम संडे 22 मई को बैंक्सटाउन स्पोर्ट्स क्लब थिएटर में होगा, जिसमें सिडनी का मशहूर अदाकार ग्रुप एक बहुत दिलचस्प ड्रामा दोज़ख पेश करेगा. इसकी मजीद तफसीलात आज के प्रोग्राम के आखिर में बताएंगे. तो चलिए ख्वातीन और हजरात, अब वो घड़ी आप पहुंची जिसका हम सबको इंतजार था. मशहूर आलम आलिम दीन इज्जत माब जनाब जावेद अहमद गामदी साहब हमारे साथ जुड़ चुके हैं डैलस यूएसए. मोहतरम जावेद गामदी साहब किसी तारुफ के मोहताज नहीं. आपका दीनी इल्म, मुख्तलिफ मामलात का तज्जिया और तशरीह ने एक बड़ी तादाद में लोगों को मुतासिर किया है. जावेद गामदी साहब का इदारा अल-मौरिद एक इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म है और अल-मौरिद के ऑस्ट्रेलियन चैप्टर के ताबन से हम लोग ये प्रोग्राम कर रहे हैं. मैं अल-मौरिद ऑस्ट्रेलिया के जो यहाँ पर मैनेजर हैं डॉक्टर जुल्फ़िकार खान साहब, मैं उनका मशकूर हूँ इस ताबन के लिए. तो चलिए बिना वक्त ज़ाय किए मैं हजरत से दरख्वास्त करूँगा कि आप हमारे नाजरीन से मुखातिब हों. मोहतरम जावेद साहब, मैं मुख्तसरन ये बताता चलूँ कि हमारा जो ये इदारा है समा, ये एक वॉलंटियरिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो सिडनी ऑस्ट्रेलिया में बुजुर्गों को मुख्तलिफ किस्म की खिदमात फराहम करता है और हमारे बहुत से बुजुर्ग हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं. तो आप इनसे भी मुखातिब हों बराह करम रमज़ान करीम से मुतालिक इस खिताब में. मोहतरम जनाब अहमद गामदी साहब.
Ghamidi Saab, you have to unmute yourself. I muted all people. Ghamidi Saab, we can't hear you yet. Maybe you have to unmute yourself.
गामदी साहब, आप हम लोग को सुन पा रहे हैं? आप अपना माइक्रोफोन टर्न ऑन कीजिए सामने.
वो अनम्यूट बटन है ना वहां पे.
आप अभी हम आपको नहीं सुन पा रहे हैं.
अब आप मुझे सुन रहे हैं?
जी.
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह रब्बिल आलमीन वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला मुहम्मदिल अमीन फ़अऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. आपने अपने इदारे का तारुफ कराया है. ये बड़ी खुशी की बात है कि हमारे यहाँ लोगों में इस बात का एहसास है कि जब आदमी बड़ी उम्र को पहुँच जाता है तो उसके मसाइल क्या होते हैं, उसकी ज़रूरतें क्या होती हैं, उसको ख़ानदान की तरफ से, माशरे की तरफ से किस तरह का ताउन मुयस्सर आना चाहिए. इस तरह की जो खिदमत भी अंजाम दी जाए वो आम हालात में भी सबके लिए बायस बरकत है. لیکن اگر رمضان کے مہینے میں اس طرح کی خدمات میں کوئی ایک قدم بھی بڑھایا جائے تو اللہ کے ہاں اس کا بڑا درجہ ہے. یہ ہمارے لیے روزوں کا مہینہ ہے. اللہ تعالیٰ نے جو عبادات ہم پر لازم کی ہیں ان میں جس طرح نماز ہے، جس طرح حج و عمرہ ہے، اسی طریقے سے رمضان کے روزے ہیں. اللہ تعالیٰ کے ساتھ بندنی جہاد ہو سکتی ہیں، وہ سب ہمارے دین میں عبادات کے نظم کے تحت لا کر بندوں سے متعلق کر دی گئی ہیں. نماز اللہ تعالیٰ کے ساتھ ہمارے تعلق کا علامتی اظہار ہے. ہم اللہ تعالیٰ کو دیکھ نہیں سکتے، براہ راست بات نہیں کر سکتے، لیکن جب ہم یہ معرفت حاصل کر لیتے ہیں کہ ہمارا ایک پروردگار ہے، وہ پروردگار وہی سب کچھ ہمیں دیتا ہے، اسی نے زندگی عطا میں ایک دن ہم کو حاضر ہونا ہے، اور اس کے بعد اسی نے ہم کو یہ بشارت دی ہے کہ وہاں ایک ابدی بادشاہی ہمارا انتظار کر رہی ہے. جب ہم یہ جان لیتے ہیں تو ہمارا دل اس کے لیے شکر گزاری کے جذبات سے معمور ہوتا ہے. ہمارا مالک جو ہم پر اتنی رحمتیں، اتنی شفقتیں اور اتنی عنایتیں فرماتا ہے، اور جس نے یہ سب کچھ ہمیں دیا ہے، ہم اس کے شکر گزار ہیں. ہمارے اعضاء اور جوارح اس کے شکر گزار ہیں، ہماری زبان اس کی شکر گزار ہے. یہی جذبہ ہے جو تعلق کے اظہار کا تقاضا کرتا ہے، اور پھر انسان کبھی اس تعلق کا اظہار پرستش کر کے کرتا ہے، کبھی اپنے پروردگار اور اپنے مالک کا حکم مان کے جان و مال کو اس کی نظر کر کے کرتا ہے. یہ تینوں چیزیں ہمارے